Hey everyone, this is Unreasonable Founders, No Plan V. I'm Kevin McKean. This is a conversation series featuring individuals who reject the conventional career path and insist on bending reality to address a problem they care about. In many cases, they walk away from safety, status, or comfort and keep going when most people would quit or just give up. My goal is to introduce you to at least one new founder each month. I think you'll find their personal and professional stories intriguing and their reasons for starting a company thought-provoking, and maybe even give you a reason to start your own company and be a founder on your own. So this is the first episode in the series, and I'm starting with Delian, who is the founder and CEO of Recamaze. Welcome, Delian.
Nice to see you again.
All right, let's dig in. I'm going to start with a couple of questions about you and sort of the genesis of starting the company and you as a founder, and then we'll get into Recamaze a little bit towards the second part of it. So let me just start by asking, when people ask you personally, what do you do? How do you answer that question today?
Well, I just replied to them that I'm doing crazy things and I'm reinventing e-commerce. And some people, they look at me and say, yeah, look, you actually look crazy, right? That's kind of my easy answer. And of
All
course,
right.
if I have to reply in a more professional way, I tell them that, hey, look, I'm a startup founder. I invented an AI agent for e-commerce that is already helping stores to shift the way they sell online and the way they are actually found by AI assistants like ChatGPT.
I think telling people you're crazy is probably a good way to get the conversation going. So I like that one better. And that's actually part of the theme today anyway. So when you think about home for you, is it Romania or Austin or somewhere in between?
Well, it's more and more Austin. I think I kind of decided that about 1 year ago.
All
Romania is
right.
still an important part, but Austin, Texas is kind of home now for me.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's good. Those of us here in Austin love to hear that. Love to hear startup founders coming to the city and helping to continue the thriving startup environment that we already have and make it even better. So what did life look like before you decided to leave Romania? Well, you're still there part-time, but when you decided to come to Austin to build your startup, what was life like before that? And when did you decide to go all in on this startup?
Well, it was too comfortable. And I know that doesn't seem like a problem, but actually it is at some point. So I was already doing the same thing for about 20 years, being an agency owner. Like since I was in college, I launched my own agency, developing websites, online stores, running marketing campaigns. And I had a very good social life, with everything you would desire, right? In that environment for sure. But that's kind of boring at some point. So AI was very interesting to me. It was very, very new at that time. I had in my team, you could count the people in AI in my area on the fingers of your hand, and there were like 5, and I had one of them in my team. So yeah, it was a good life, but too comfortable and not challenging enough.
Gotcha. Thus being crazy. So expanding on that just a little bit, because you talked just for a moment about starting an agency and when you started out really young. What's the short version of the journey where you started and the moment that you realized you weren't going to live a normal career?
Well, I think I always achieved what I dreamed about. So there was a moment I was a student and I lived in Yash, a beautiful city. It was, full of lights, beautiful magic kind of night. And I was looking around and I said, well, look, there were a lot of ads, in the town at that time. And I thought to myself, hey, look, in 10 years since now, I should have an agency and build these kind of ads and marketing campaigns. And then I said, whoa, why should I wait 10 years? I can do it right now. That's how I started.
Got it.
And I had actually have a roommate and we were in the college and he was kind of good in Photoshop, like super bad, basic, but he was like good graphician. And at that time was, I think, Photoshop 1, Photoshop 2, something like that. I don't remember exactly, but he succeeded to make a thunder strike effect on a picture and ask him, hey, look, can you do websites? Say, yeah, sure. Okay, let's build a company.
Makes sense. I think a lot of founders have a story like that it starts out with some kind of insight that they have about something and it kind of triggers in them this desire to go be their own boss. So when you decided to come to Austin and start Recomase, you came here as a result of something here in Austin called the International Accelerator. Why did you choose the International Accelerator, and what were the realistic expectations that you had going into it?
Well, look, the moment I actually came first time in Austin, I had no plan or idea that I'm going to open a company in US or even relocate that at that time. And part of the reason I'm doing this relocation and the success that I have with this company is actually because of the International Accelerator. Long story short, I came in Austin for the South by. One of my friends told me, like, look, this is a huge tech event. He knew that I like attending these kind of events all over the world. Say, hey, can't miss this one. So I went there. I had the pleasure to meet Mr. Angelos Angelou, told me about the accelerator. I met the team at that time. I even pitched on stage. I had a lousy pitch, believe me. But the cool thing is that immediately after the pitch, like I met a very elegant person that started to ask me questions about the machine learning things and a lot of technical things, the cookieless technology. And I was like, oh, okay, this guy looks really smart. And actually, that person was Mr. Nikos Yatropoulos, who actually is the fund manager that invested in Recomase. So I think the reason actually that made me choose Austin was people, smart people that care about you, people that know and have the meanings to help you start and build a startup.
Mm-hmm. You know, when you probably going back to the point at which you were introduced to Angelos and decided to come be a part of the accelerator, I'm assuming you didn't know at that time that Angelos in Austin, Texas is a rock star. He's a known celebrity. He's been active in the Austin community since the 80s. I believe he was the chief economist for the city of Austin and produced these reports on a regular basis that gave us information about the economy, the jobs market, that sort of thing. And so he's very well known. And for my own personal side of it, I've known about Angelos, obviously, since the 80s, because I lived here back then as well, but had never met him. So I went to an event sometime earlier this year, and he was just kind of standing alone by himself. And I went up and introduced myself. I had no idea who it was. And yeah, then one thing led to another, and I got to finally meet him. I didn't go intending to meet him personally, didn't even know he was going to be there. But I'm really happy to get to meet him in person because I've known about him for a long time. So you're connected to and a part of an organization that has a lot of history, both for him and for Nikos. And so, as I told Angelos, I love the fact that, you know, he and Nikos are sort of making this investment in international born founders to bring them to Austin and to support them through this accelerator and to continue to build the startup ecosystem. As an investor, for somebody that wants to work locally with founders, I love that because it means that you're local, you're here when you're in Austin, and we can meet in person. And so, you know, that's a big part of what Angelos and Nikos are doing is building up this community of startup businesses and supporting them with mentorship, advisory support, as well as funding. So I think that's great. So was there a moment during the accelerator where you thought to yourself, maybe this is a mistake? And it's a big commitment on your part to come halfway around the world to Austin, Texas and start a business here. So if that was something that happened to you or some seminal moment that happened during this early stages of you being in the accelerator, what was it and what got you through that?
Short answer, no. I never doubted. I had, my own struggles. There were like difficult moments when you build a business from scratch, when you have to adapt to a new culture and start learning or unlearning things. But no, I'm committed to my decisions. Maybe that's why.
Got it. Okay. What about being a Romanian founder here in North America, or being here in Austin in particular? Has it shaped the way investors treat you, for better or for worse?
Well, I think I don't know actually about other people, but when you move to or yeah, you move to a new country, it's kind of hard to actually understand people because a lot of subtle signals are different in their language and maybe even in the way like in the body language or something like that. So
Mhm.
initially I kind of struggled for about 1 month to understand if like, hey, look, are these people like for really, really so friendly and willing to help, or is just like something they fake it? I realized that actually they're honest and they were willing to help. Being a Romanian, I don't think like that made things better or worse. No, it helped me because maybe it helped me a little bit because I found a community there, fellow
Mhm.
Romanians. So that was helpful. That was the plus. Otherwise, it's just like, it's more like a realm of mind and abilities and commitment rather than an ability, something that relates to the culture you're coming from or, the language you're speaking. It's more your ability to solve problems and produce results.
Got it. So as the series progresses, in the second interview that we'll do after you, I'll be interviewing Philip, who is the founder and CEO of AppWizzy and was also the founder and CEO of a software development services company called FlatLogic, who I've worked with for many years. Is there something about Eastern European grit or culture that you think gives you an edge as a founder? And this is something Philip and I have talked about as well. Him from a different part of the world, starting out in Belarus and now being in Warsaw, Poland, but in that part of Europe in general, the founders that I've met, they just have this really strong work ethic, loyalty, intelligence, and desire to win. And so that's my interpretation and impression of it. But what do you think it is about founders that start off in Eastern Europe and, build a business in North America, for example, or a business focused on North America?
Well, I met a lot of founders from all over the world, and I can say that all of them were committed and pretty smart, actually. Most of them more intelligent than I am. Clearly, coming from Eastern Europe shapes you in a way, right? Mentally, because we're absorbing, things from that culture. We're the product of that society. And I'm just thinking about myself now. I was born during communist, so it was kind of harsh, even if communist ended when I was like 7 or 8 years. But the early years are the ones that kind of shape your personality. So at that time there was just one way, like, to do it. You had to succeed. You had to solve the problem. There was no second chance or other options. And yeah, my father had some like issues with his health and things like that. So I had to do what I had to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, people coming from that region and from other regions as well, where maybe the life was a little bit harsher, have some, let's say, aptitudes and skills more developed, while also they have some weaknesses as well. So it's a mix. And I think it really depends on how you use, your weaknesses and strengths. And probably the best way to, what I learned on myself is that it's always better to play my strengths. I'm not ignoring my weaknesses, but every time I try to improve my weaknesses and try to put a lot of effort there, it didn't work. So, yeah.
It's one of the reasons that I'm drawn to you and to Philip is not just the intellectual curiosity, but also the humility that you just displayed there. And, it's no big deal. It's what you do. But candidly, this is unreasonable founders, people that have no plan B. This needs to work. And many cases, they come from that environment that I find in North American founders, but maybe not as often because they have a second plan. They have a backup. And so that's what differentiates you and others that I've met. So as a founder, what's a belief that you had about startups? Maybe this goes back to the agency that you founded as well, that turned out to be completely wrong. So you had this belief, this is what it means to build a business and have a startup. And it turned out that wasn't true.
Yeah. I thought it's about money when I started. I thought it's about big investments and checks, and it is, of course. But first of all, it's about people. And when I say people, first of all, it's about people as clients, like, and people as a team. Actually, when you understand that and actually you succeed with dealing with people, then the money, it's just a consequence and the success. I think one of the biggest like misunderstandings about people that are starting a startup, but at least from my understanding and the discussion I had with other founders, is like, hey, look, I'm going to build this app that is going to raise so much money and is going to be sold
Mm-hmm.
with. Most of the time, actually, it fails. Some of them succeed with that mentality for sure. It's just because of the pure will. But then I think if you really care about not what are you developing, but for who and why, then that's the real magic behind behind.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. I think that in many cases, I get the opportunity to meet lots of startup founders. Many times it's because they're raising money and they're asking for some form of investment. And I hear in their voice the passion and the desire that they have. But to your point, not all the time, but often it's about, I want to get rich. I want to change my life. I want to be part of that. What I read about in social media, I want to be part of that culture of these really rich people. And the core of startups and the growth of technology really is not necessarily these big bang product companies or service companies. It's companies like Recamaze and Appwizzy and that are doing the hard work to change how people use these products and services based on what we've talked about before. Inflection point. In this particular case, it's about artificial intelligence and how that overlays with e-commerce. And so, yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. So if it's okay, I'm going to shift just a little bit using that as a segue to talk a little bit more about Recamaze and what Recamaze does. So tell us, what problem does Recamaze solve in plain language for someone who has never heard of Recamaze or know what you do?
Yeah. So Recamaze helps merchants to make their stores being intelligent. And I'm going to explain that. So
Mm-hmm.
we're living in the ages of AI, and now more and more the traffic and in the websites and the actions that we do is generated or are done with AI. A lot of our research is done with AI. A lot of the small activities in that we do daily, we use AI. What Recamaze does is Recamaze sits in as an agent, and I'm trying to kind of explain that on plain language because you asked me. So Recamaze is like a living salesperson that lives in a store. You install it, and then
Mm-hmm.
it's able to understand what visitors are actually looking for. And then based on what they learn, what Recamaze learns about the visitors, Recamaze is recommending the right products at the right time, and then explain those products, guide the visitor through the journey process, and is able to actually answer any question about that product. Behind the scene, to actually do that and act as a living salesperson that evolves with the store and evolves with the visitor, with the shopper, Recamaze is able to do that because when someone installs us, we take their inventory and we actually prepare it for agentic AI. Means that we extract the data and we repurpose it, we reshape it in a way that it's understood by AI agents, which means that it's very effective for us, so we can use it in the relation with the visitors, but also it's prepared in a way that can be understood and found by ChatGPT, by the new way that Google works, by any other AI assistants that are nowadays, and the future will actually be a part of this huge shift in e-commerce.
Got it. So, just to sort of summarize a little bit and then to come back to that as a question, personalization in e-commerce is not necessarily new, right? It's been around for quite a while. Given my experience in e-commerce going back to 2014, it was around then. The inflection point that's changing things is artificial intelligence, agentic solutions like Recamaze. And so of all the problems that you could work on, why this one? Why one that is not necessarily new, but as I mentioned, the inflection point being AI is changing the rules around how these types of services are used and improving them significantly. But why this one problem did you pick that one?
Look, we initially we picked personalization and AI for the first time visitors. That was the first problem that we picked when we started Recamaze. And the reason was that first time visitors, it's in average 80% of the traffic of any website. And there weren't at that time tools to actually capture reliably data and provide enough data to be able to personalize the journey of the first-time visitors. There were a lot of tools that actually were relying on historical data like the past account, past purchase data, account data. But when you're a first-time visitor, there is no account. It's your first visit, so there is no information about you. You could actually get some data with the cookies, but that wasn't like super reliable. So we started by solving that problem, getting data and providing personalization for the first-time visitors in e-commerce. And
Mm-hmm.
then as the market now shifts to AI agents and it's more and more agentic traffic on the websites, and there is a need actually for people to be found in ChatGPT, to be found in Google, as the SEO results actually dropped a lot. And even the results that you can get with Google ads or other PPC
Mm-hmm.
methods actually also dramatically dropped. There is a need for you to be found in the new tools. So actually we were already there. So we were already installed in so many websites. We had the data already prepared for us because we were an agent already, the way that the agents actually needs to have it. So it was a natural add-on or addition to our cookieless personalization to add these way of preparing the stores to be found in by the AI assistants.
Yeah, when we started this conversation, one of the things that I talked a little bit about was many times founders like yourself, when you start companies like Recamaze, you're looking beyond the horizon. You're looking past the way things are today, and you're really trying to look into the future and create a product solution or a service that's going to meet that need for the future. And if I were to maybe summarize a little bit about what you said, the world is changing in e-commerce, in particular around keyword search and SEO using optimization for search in traditional web browsers. And it's moving towards this agentic commerce protocol, or this idea that these artificial intelligence engines will help you find the products that you're looking for based upon natural language. And so when you think about how you look into the future, and we'll come back to this in just a minute, talking about what merchants believe personalization is and what it will be. But was there a specific moment or experience for you that planted the seed for the company? What was the particular customer or a frustration or something that you saw in the market? Because again, you're looking beyond where things are today and you're looking into the future. But how do you do that when, so many people are looking at what's going on right now, and all they see is how things work in this moment, not how they could work in the future and how they could be better?
I think the seeds were planted like years ago because of my experience as an agency owner, working with hundreds of clients and trying to get them better results with the marketing campaigns and doing SEO services at that time. So the need was clear. There was no tools you could use to actually capture relevant data about the first-time visitors and generally about the visitors, because even a recurring visitor is not always logging in, right? So you actually don't know it's your visitor all the time. And then was the seeds planted actually. But then with everything, uh, ev- the way everything is shifting right now, it's so familiar to me, is like in the early 90s when everything was kind of new, SEO was new. So I think is the same innovation process that made us at that time to be listed on the first position in Google for years. And it's not magic, actually, it's science, right? If you read the science and you read documentations and you look like, hey, look what's important. And it's simple things like you need a title to have very specific information. You need to prepare the data of your stores, not as a copywriter using the emotions, but actually putting the data first, because AI
Mm-hmm.
agents don't look for emotions, they look for data, right? They look for the price, they look for the attributes, they look for very specific data so they can actually answer back to long queries or conversational queries.
Yeah. For me, many people that I meet think that they can predict the future, right? They'll say, well, this is going to happen in the future based on what's going on now. And look, the fact of the matter is nobody really knows. But there are founders like yourself that choose not to predict the future, but you want to invent the future, right? You're not going to wait and see what happens. You're going to shape it in that direction because you believe that's the best thing for example, in this case, e-commerce merchants. So in 3 to 5 years, assuming Recamaze is very successful, what's visibly different about e-commerce brands and how they operate in 3 to 5 years, with Recamaze as a solution that they can use?
That's something for sure I can predict because I know that I already know because we're running so many projects and audits and improvements for online stores. So I know for sure that not all stores on the internet are ready to be found by AI. There are some of them that have the data in a very specific format or, like very good data, but the vast majority, they have to invest a lot in preparing their inventory. So that's something that's needed. And for sure, just by doing that and doing that like the first stores, like the early adopters, for sure they'll have a very good position in their niche and they will see the results maybe not right away because right now there is no magic solutions or like a certain path to achieve that. There are only some there are common sense things that you have to do, and that's what we do actually with Recamaze. We fix the common sense things that really needs to be there, and also we're looking ahead and we're developing. Actually, like to say that we are at least 1 month and a half in advance with everything that we do, which is probably a lot nowadays. And I'm looking in the future where a lot of the interactions that we would perform as people would be through AI agents, with AI agents. So we are helping the brands to be there and the brands that are doing all these things, all this preparation. I'm not saying just use Recamaze right now, but for sure it is like doing everything that you have to do to prepare yourself for this era will be the way that will actually put them to be successful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, one of my takeaways when I was in the e-commerce world working at BigCommerce was working with relatively small e-commerce merchants that were selling physical goods. And one of the questions that they would often ask is, how do I level the playing field with some of these larger brands that maybe sell the same type of product that I do? I can go create my own Shopify or BigCommerce site, my own branded site, and I can go buy, optimize my SEO. I can go buy ads. I can do things like that, but I'm probably never going to get to that level. So their question was always, how do I level the playing field? And most of the time they viewed their best option as going into social media selling, or Amazon. So go to Amazon, Instagram, Facebook, whatever. In this particular case, I feel like with this inflection point with agentic commerce just starting and really starting to emerge, and companies like Recamaze being in the forefront of that, helping merchants to recognize the value of that and to optimize their product sets to be found better, I think the playing field could be leveled to a certain extent because I wouldn't say we're starting at ground zero again, because that's clearly not true. If you're a large brand, you have a lot of recognition, but now's your chance. If you're a relatively small e-commerce brand that has your own products and you've always wondered how to create that brand recognition, this is a way for you to do the work to get that product mix set up in the right way, and Recamaze can help with that so that you are easier and more often in these agentic commerce searches. So I think it's an important time, and I think it's important for e-commerce merchants to recognize now is the moment for them to act. If you wait and you miss this opportunity, all these large brands are going to do it themselves and they will beat you to it again, and you'll be back to kind of square one where you were before. So I think it's definitely an important moment, and I think Recamaze is going to play a big part in that and to help, as I said, some of these smaller e-commerce merchants level the playing field to a certain extent. So last question from me, and then anything else you want to add. If you were advising other startup founders today in any particular business, what would you tell them based on your experiences so far?
It's not about what I would say what I would say to them, because it really depends on what drives them, and the stage they are at. But I think the general thing that we as a startups, we should actually think and try to achieve is to do something that really helps someone, something that's really meaningful for someone. I'm telling that because I've been in software development all my life, and I've seen so many software applications and so many ideas that actually consumed a lot of resources without actually being successful. And I always try to understand, hey, look, why not? And what's the difference? What made these app, let's call it startup, successful, and the other one actually failed? And I think the success actually came from the person that was behind and the level of work and passion and belief that was put it there. Because look, you can maybe wrong with something initially, like you can have an idea, you can build a startup, you can build an app, and maybe your initial thesis could be wrong. But then if the general idea, or the North Star that you're pursuing, it's right, then you'll find a way, you'll shape a way. And as a startup, it's not that you're building something that was built before, because then you're not actually building a new thing, like a new business. It's you inventing something. So it's right to to be wrong sometimes and do some mistakes, but then as long as you keep your belief, and then of course you get some results on the road, and you see the market responding to what you're doing, or the people around, it seems that you're on track.
Got it. Okay. So Recome serves e-commerce merchants, and you work very closely with agencies that support these e-commerce merchants as well. So if somebody watching this wants to figure out how to do this or learn more, how do they get in touch with you, and where do they find Recome's?
Well, we're everywhere where it matters. I mean, we are as a plugin on the major platforms for e-commerce, like Shopify, BigCommerce, WooCommerce, Shop, and soon on Shopware, and other platforms are on our roadmap as well. Of course, we're publishing often information on our websites and on LinkedIn, and everyone that is looking for Recome's will just it will be easy for them to find us.
Got it. Anything else you want to add before we wrap up?
Yeah. I want to say that the merchants and the agencies, they understand, have a lot of conversations every day. All these discussions are actually, in all these discussions I'm having with these people, I can see very intelligent people that actually build some amazing brands, and they care about their brand. They understand what's happening right now. It's not like everyone understands, and everyone tries actually to do something. So what we do with Recome's is not about Recome's actually. It's about their brands and the way we can help them. And I am so lucky that every day I'm learning something new, at least 2 or 3 things, because, interacting with some brand owners is like, they tell us their problem. They like, hey, look, we have these amazing products and we have the data structure like this, but it's not enough. And we have these PDFs that are in English and Chinese and some other languages, what we can do. And then we just have this amazing feature where we actually take all that data from the PDFs and everything, and we create a custom documentation for them. And there are so many other things that I'm learning every day. So I'm so lucky. And I'm telling you, everyone knows. Everyone is looking for solution. All discussion I have is with people that are like, hey, look, I'm assessing everyday solutions like you. I was looking for a solution like you. Or, hey, so it's not as people don't think, or they don't know. I think it's more about how good is the solution you're using, how flexible, how good is the partnership, and how much the people working together from those two companies are actually caring about the results, and how willing are to. Yeah.
Really appreciate the time that you spent and the insights that you offered, and appreciate it. And I think others will learn from it as well.
Thank you for inviting me. It was a pleasure.